Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. So, unfortunately, I have tested positive for the big C. I've been feeling a little bit under the weather. I guess it was good timing because it happened right after my semester ended and before Christmas, but needless to say, I've been feeling a little bit kind of crappy recently, and it's been a while since I've gotten a video out for you guys, and this is one that I've been really excited to do, and I've got a window where I feel pretty good now, so I'm going to film that. But if I sound a little sniffly, my voice sounds a little strange, it's because I am sick right now, so bear with me. But today we are going to go over my 10 most anticipated reads of 2024. Now, this is excluding series that I am already in the middle of. This is either going to be standalone books that I'm really excited to get to, or the beginnings of a new series that I'm really excited to get to. So that's the only kind of stipulation on this as far as that goes. But before we get into the list, we of course have to go over the answer for what was now a while ago, but the last Comedy with Colin segment, where I asked you guys to joke, why do ducks have feathers? The answer? To cover their butt quacks. Alright, with that one out of the way, guys, let's get on with this list. Now, this is in no particular order in terms of when I'm going to get to these. This is just a list of 10 books that I definitely want to try to tackle next year. So with that being said, my first book on the list is going to be Dune by, of course, Frank Herbert. Now, this is just a classic sci-fi book that I can no longer justify putting off. I had a buddy that is not a part of BookTube read this recently. I lent it to him, and he was amazed by how invested in this he was. He was a little worried, as I am, about how old this book is, the style that it was written, if it wasn't connect with him, and he said he was connected the entire time. He was floored by the world building and just the lore that he could feel being built out in this world, and he immediately wanted to move on to Dune Messiah after this first one. So I think this book has been on my shelf for too long for me to not have read yet, so I'm going to try to tackle this one earlier next year so that I can finally check the Dune box off my list. Next up is going to be a book that I do not own, but it is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. Now, our Discord, An Unexpected Party, is actually going to be doing a read-along of this book in January, which really sparked the flame underneath me to get to this one. But a couple people, namely Dan from the Black and Blue Collar Reader, he just recently read this book, and he released a wonderful, wonderful review of this book. I don't know much about it, but I am going to link Dan's video in the description of this video in case you guys want to check that out. I highly recommend it. But Dan said that this book is absolutely wild, so I think what's going on is that there's a framed narrative being told to a child in this book. And then there's also another story about these two men who are traveling with this retired goddess or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that enough people are hyped up about this book, and Dan especially is on this kind of, I don't know if it's new wave, but he's on this wave of reading weird fiction, stuff that's just kind of out there and just crazy, trippy, not your status quo fantasy. And this book apparently fits that box perfectly, and I am kind of in the mood to be stepping out of my comfort of, the strict fantasy, sci-fi guidelines, and just kind of getting weird with it. And so The Spear Cuts Through Water is gonna fit the bill for that for me. And this one I will be prioritizing in January for the read along for our Discord. The third book on my list is going to be Senent Ascends. Now, this is the Books of Babel, so this will be the beginning of a new series by Josiah Bancroft. And I have owned all 4 of these books for over a year now. That seems to be a theme for me. I buy things up and eventually get to them. But that's far too long to not have at least started the series yet. And so this series, I believe, at least this first book, is about a man named Senlin, who is the headmaster at a small school, and he decides to take his wife on a honeymoon vacation to one of the greatest marvels of the world, which is the Tower of Babel. It's this crazy place with tons of layers and tons of mysterious beings and creatures and, I don't know, situations to get into. But Senlin ends up getting separated from his wife, and I'm assuming everything following this inciting incident is him trying to get his wife back to find her. But there are many hoops and hurdles that Senlin is going to have to jump through. And I know Alan from the Library of Alexandria is super, super high on this series, and also super high on Josiah Bancroft in general as an author. And I honestly have not read too many of the books that Alan has read, as big of a fan of his channel as I am, which is kind of surprising. But I definitely want to get to Senent Ascends because I feel like, just based off the premise of this is going to be something that really resonates with me, and hopefully I enjoy Josiah Bancroft's writing style. Alright, the fourth book on my list is going to be Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Now, I cannot believe how many people on BookTube just this last year have read Lonesome Dove for the first time, and basically, without hesitation, have put it in their top 5 books of all time on their first read. That alone has gotten me extremely interested in picking this one up. And I got this really cool bind up, the one that I just showed you, at an estate sale for like, I don't know, $1, something crazy. And it's got Lonesome Dove, Leaving Cheyenne, and The Last Picture Show, which I had a buddy tell me is a fantastic movie. I have not seen that either. But in a nutshell, this book is about a group of people leading a cattle drive from the state of Texas to the state of Montana. I don't know much more than that. I don't really want to know much more than that. But I've heard that Lonesome Dove is an absolutely fantastic journey of friendship, heartache, perseverance, and amazing, amazing character work. Plus, it's a Western, and I can't honestly say that I've ever read a Western before. I guess the only one, if you want to consider it a Western, which I don't think it's considered any like one specific genre, but would be The Gunslinger, the first book in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Felt pretty Western to me, but it's also got some other weird stuff going on. So this will check the box of reading Lonesome Dove finally, which so many people just adore, and will also check the box of stepping out of my comfort zone again, kind of similar to the spear cuts through water. That's right. So I want to do some more exploring in 2024. That's going to be kind of a theme of mine. I'm going to stick to my roots, of course, for the most part, but I do want to step out of my comfort zone a little bit, and Lonesome Dove feels like a fantastic way to do that. All right, for number 5, finally hopping on the Red Rising train with the first book, Red Rising, by Pierce Brown. Yes, I'm finally going to hop on, albeit it is a lot later than many of you have. Now, I have heard not to judge the rest of this series based on the first installment, and enough people that I know and trust their opinion absolutely love this series that I'm not too worried about maybe not being in love with this first book, because I know there's some amazing stuff to come. Hardly anybody, I mean, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that has read at least this first trilogy and not loved it. So I'm finally going to take the dip and trust that Pierce Brown is going to work out for me. If I end up loving Red Rising or being interested in continuing, I have the next 2 books in the first trilogy, so if I end up enjoying this, I probably won't waste too much time in getting to those. I don't know how many, I think there's 5 books out in total in the Red Rising series so far, but I don't know much about this. I know that it's kind of like a sci-fi space opera type of thing, where there's a lot of things going on in space. The stakes are very high, and I'm very excited to get to, you'll see later, to a couple bigger sci-fi series, because I feel like I haven't really tackled many big sci-fi series. I feel like I've checked a few of the bigger fantasy series that I wanted to get to off of my list, but with 2024 coming in, I think I want to focus a little bit more on sci-fi as well, and kind of just get a little bit of variation on the channel and in my reading, just to expand my reading palette a little bit. So for those of you that have read Red Rising, I'm sure you're very excited for me to get to it, and I can't wait to talk to you guys that have so much to say about the Red Rising series finally. Alright, for number 6, again we're going to stick with my little theme of stepping out of my comfort zone with Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, I'm sure somebody will correct me. But this is obviously a classic and is considered one of the greatest masterpieces in Russian literature. We're following our main character here, Rodion Raskolnikov. Okay, I think I got that. As he plots to kill an elderly pawnbroker, and then as he commits this deed, he is faced with confronting all of the consequences that come with this, creating this, doing this act. So I have to give a shout out to my friend Carlos, who is one half of the amazing channel StoryTube. I will also link his video on his thoughts on Crime and Punishment in the description of this video, because he's really the one that pushed me over the edge to finally be willing to take a leap and read this. My mom bought me this book for Christmas 2 years ago now. It's kind of been sitting on my shelf, I will admit, slightly because I'm intimidated by it. But Carlos has, like I said, kind of inspired me to pull the trigger. He did a fantastic job articulating his thoughts on this book, and I think that I'm going to do something a little bit similar to what he did. He, I think, took multiple months maybe to finish this book, and I plan on doing the same thing. I plan on maybe just reading a small amount, maybe every day, every other day, and just however long it takes me to finish it, it's going to take me. I do not want to rush through this one. I'd love to just sit with this, think on what I've read, and just kind of try to formulate some thoughts on this. I haven't read a classic in a very long time, and I know this isn't the type of book that you just fly through anyways, but I think I'm going to force myself, because I'm somebody that can, if I'm enjoying something, really just pedal to the metal, fly through it. And I think I'm going to really try to temper myself on this one and take my time and just sit with this and see where it goes. And if any of you guys out there have read this or want to read it or want to hop on my really slow read along of it, which isn't official, but if there's enough people that want to join me, let me know in the comments. Maybe we could get a read along together in the channel, the Discord, and just kind of, I don't know, chat about what we're reading together. Because this one, like I said, is a little bit intimidating, but hey, I'm here to learn as a reader and to expand my knowledge and to just become a better reader. And I think a good way to do that is to not read the same type of stuff all the time, to really challenge my thoughts, to really challenge my beliefs, to really challenge what I think I know. The best way to do that is to step out of my comfort zone, so I'm going to do that with Crime and Punishment. Alrighty, number 7, The Road, by, of course, Cormac McCarthy. Now, this will be my first foray into McCarthy. I own this, and I own Blood Meridian. But The Road seems to me like a more enticing entry point, personally, to get a feel for McCarthy than Blood Meridian does. I know that The Road is an inspiration for many dystopian, apocalyptic stories that I am a fan of. And the next time I'm in the mood to just be emotionally devastated, I think it will be the time that I pick The Road up. I don't have a specific date in mind to get to this one. But this is another book that I know virtually nothing about. And I kind of want to keep it that way. The only real thing I know is it's a man and a boy just traveling post-apocalyptic America, dystopian society. Everything has just kind of gone to the crapper, and just their experience with that, working through these awful scenarios and situations together and just trying to survive. It's not very long. It is under 300 pages. So I'm interested to see what McCarthy ends up packing into this small package, and how how I'm gonna feel about his unique writing style, because I know he is not a fan of all the time sticking with, the rules of grammar and syntax, and he just kind of does his own thing, but it works for a lot of people. A lot of people herald him as a genius for what he does. I know it rubs some people the wrong way, but I'm going to see where I fall, and I think the road's a great place to start with McCarthy. Alrighty, we are to number 8, guys, and it is going to be Something Wicked This Way Comes by, of course, Ray Bradbury. There are some very well-known authors on my list, I'm realizing. Some authors that I want to really get to. I know that I have read Ray Bradbury before at some point in an English class. It's been an extremely long time, and I feel like I need to get back to some Bradbury. This is a dark fantasy novel about two 13-year-old best friends and their nightmarish experience with a traveling carnival that comes to town. Yes, please. That sounds amazing. Although I have read Bradbury before, I know I have never read this book before, so this will be an entirely new experience for me. And I got to shout out Dan from the Black and Blue Collar Reader. Again, he was my very first guest on my first ever Books and Basketball show, which if you guys want to go back and watch that, Dan and I had a blast talking books and basketball, of course. But he spoke very, very highly of Something Wicked This Way Comes. I think I can quote him saying, "You need to read this, Colin." He got me really hyped to pick this one up, and I know it isn't spooky season or anything like that. I don't think it needs to be to read me some Bradbury, so I'm going to plan to read this. Again, not very long, just over 300 pages. But so many people love this book. I love this edition that I got a while back at Barnes & Noble. It makes me feel like creepy carnival vibes. And Bradbury is just, people speak so highly of his prose and just how beautifully he's able to just work the English language into this just amazing art piece, and to weave a story and display it for people. I want to experience that. So Something Wicked This Way Comes. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to put that one off. Like I said, it's short, and I want to get to that one pretty soon, I think, because I'm just in the mood for it. So, yep, Something Wicked This Way Comes is book number 8. Alrighty, guys, coming in at number 9, we have, boom, Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is a sci-fi epic series that I believe is 10 books. It might be 9. I think it's 10 in total, though. This story is taking place in the future, where humanity has colonized most of the solar system, but where we cannot yet reach the stars. With so much of the solar system now being colonized by humans, the next logical chain of events would lead to groups of humans engaging in power struggles over resources. So tensions brew, and signs are pointing to an entire system-wide war based on the discovery of a secret that can lead to a lot of power for the wielder of this knowledge. The scales sound absolutely huge in this one, bigger maybe than anything I've read before. And I know my good friend Ben from Books with Genghis Khan just recently finished this series and could not have spoken more highly of this story as a whole. And it seems that more than any of my other friends on BookTube that I've discovered so far, mine and Ben's enjoyment typically aligns on most things that we have both read. So I think that bodes really well for me. And again, this is going to be me kind of making a commitment to explore more sci-fi series, really get into this genre, dig into it and see how it works, what makes it tick, what some of the greats in this genre are. So along with this, if you guys are big sci-fi fans and you think there's any other big series other than Red Rising and The Expanse that you think I would enjoy, please let me know in the comments, because I'm open to sci-fi series recommendations. That's something that I really want to be better at, is tackling some more of these bigger sci-fi series, because I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on some fantasy that I've read and some fantasy that I know I want to read, but there's not a lot of sci-fi that I have plans for. So I'm really open to suggestions for sci-fi and sci-fi series specifically. All right, guys, last but not least, number 10, In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. So I didn't realize entirely until I was about to film this video how kind of diversified this list was, and not necessarily my norm. And I don't want you guys to worry and think I'm not going to be covering a lot of fantasy or anything like that. These are all just, these are 10 books that I want to read, and I will still be doing primarily fantasy, sci-fi, horror reviews, stuff like that on the channel. But I really just, as a reader, want to try to branch out and do some stuff that's not in my comfort zone. Again, like I talked about already, but this is actually a nonfiction book that details the murders of 4 members of the Clutter family that lived in a small farming town called Holcomb in Kansas. Now, I have heard this is a bone-chilling depiction of some absolutely heinous crimes that actually took place. These are based on real events. And I feel like the knowledge that the events in this novel happened in real life is just going to significantly add weight to my feeling towards the events as they're happening in this book. So I think that from what I've read just briefly online, Capote takes some time to introduce us to the Clutter family and the members before they get murdered. So of course he's going to get me emotionally attached to them before he vividly describes how they are just brutally murdered. And I think that I don't know if I've ever read a book like this before, where it's a nonfiction depiction of real life gruesome murder. It just sounds like something different. And I believe that I will actually be doing a read along with Britain from the Some Okie Dude channel. I think we're going to aim for February. So if anybody wants to read this with us, you are more than welcome to hop on, and I'm sure we will be discussing this in our Discord. But again, this isn't a very long one. It's something different than what I've been reading, and I'm excited to get to this just because, again, it's checking a box that is just outside of my comfort zone. So I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it, the content of it, but I hope to just be able to be just engaged with the text and I don't know, just try to empathize with what these people in this town might have been going through throughout these horrific events. So yes, number 10 to round out my list is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Well, that is going to do it for the 10 books that I am most anticipating heading into 2024. Guys, let me know in the comments what are some of the books that you are most highly anticipating heading into the new year. Of course, probably just after the new year, I'll be doing a top 10 maybe favorite books that I read in 2023, which is going to be a very difficult list to make. I don't know exactly how I'm going to format that, but I will be doing some iteration of a favorite reads from 2023, so be on the lookout for that. But before we wrap up today's video, we of course have to do comedy with Colin, and today's joke is going to be, what kind of shoes do spies wear? If you think you know the answer, drop it down in the comments below. Guys, thank you so much. I have to thank everybody in the BookTube community because we have just hit over 500 subscribers, and I am humbled. I am blown away by the support in this community. My goal for my first year on BookTube was to hit 500. I believe I released my first video on January 28th this year, so I hit that way sooner than I thought I was going to. So I have you guys to thank for being such an amazing part of my community and making this journey just an absolute blast. So again, thank you. I'm on this train. I'm going to keep riding it and just see where it takes me. But again, I'm just so grateful for the support and the friends that I've made in this journey so far. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're just seeing my channel for the first time, welcome. Hopefully you stick around and you like what you see here. But With that being said, guys, I hope you are all enjoying what you're currently reading, and remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.